My name is Nick B, and let's get into this week's futures overview. So, starting with the Forex economic calendar, Monday's pretty mute. Tuesday, we had Fed Chair Powell testifies at 10 a.m. Let's see, Wednesday, we have Fed Chair Powell again at 10. Then we have a 10-year bond auction. That's going to be interesting on Wednesday, and that's going to be at 1 p.m. EST. Thursday, we have CPI and unemployment claims, both at 8:30 a.m. Now, the expectation for CPI, I really don't have one. I think it doesn't matter at this point anymore, given where we are and the advances that we've made. Powell began just talking about rate cuts last year of December, and we haven't cut anything, but yet look where we are. So with that said, we'll just have to take it, a day at a time. We'll see what the numbers are, but I say higher on the grand scheme of things. And then Thursday, we have at 1:01 p.m. the 30-year bond auction as well. Friday, the weekend's off with core PPI at 8:30 a.m. And then at 10 a.m., we have consumer sentiment. Okay, so it's going to be a fair week. It's going to be interesting. We're going to have some catalysts that will help us with direction. And now let's take a look at the price here. So as always, we'll start with ES. All right. I'm on the 1 year daily, so I don't really need to expand much. And let's start off with the facts. Oops. All right. So the absolute bottom line support, and I really don't think we're gonna see this at all, is 54.87. Just last week, we finally managed to break above our higher highs of 55.88. If we even come down to 55.88, I think everyone's going to be buying hand over fist. And at the worst of it is if we break below last week's highs of 55.88, it's going to expose us to the possibility of seeing some downside at least towards 55.10, 55.09, which just so happens to be last week's bottom call for price action where we bounced out of that area. And at the same time, my 20-day EMA on the daily, that's going to act as a very brutal support if if we break below 55.88. So let's break this down to the 4 hour. Let's see if I can hone in on anything else going on here, because at the moment, if we get above 56.25, we're going higher. We're probably going to begin aiming at 56.50 as the main target to the upside. Then including the 20-point increment breakout that ES likes to move in, if and when we get to 56.50, 56.70 would be my first target. And then really above 56.70, I'd like for us to get to 5700. Might be a stretch, but not really. Not really, given how we've been basically buying every single dip to the upside. So the best case scenario is we dip to 55.85 or 88, and that holds as support. We nibble there on a buy and we go higher. If 55.88 breaks, I'm not going to be quick to try to short it down to 5500, but in terms of downside, get me below 54.90, I'd be inclined to put a 15-point risk for a possible 50 to 60 point downside move, really down towards 5400. Um, we'll see. We'll see how that unfolds. I don't encounter. I mean, I'm not expecting any more downside down here, but anything is possible, so I won't be ignorant to that. Definitely going to look to buy the dips. I got to break this down now, probably to the intradays to give me an idea of what's happening. So we just opened, we came down a bit, this little dip on ES down to 5600, 5610 really, held as support. If we retake 5620, again, 5625 breaks, you have the green light to go towards 5650. The last thing I want to do is rush anything on a Sunday into Monday. I'm definitely more inclined, even if 5625 breaks, I'm more inclined to wait for the Monday open and see how that develops first. Last week we were a bit rough into the beginning of the week, so we'll be slowing our roll for now. But again, each and every dip I expect it to get bought. Again, I cannot pick anything out here aside from 55.88 and 56.25 being my breakout or breakdown zone. So at best, even if I break this down to the 15-minute, we have how many points? 20. We have about 30, 40 points of playroom here. So let's let the price action kind of figure itself out here, and we'll go from there. If into tomorrow I see 56.25 breaking, wonderful. We'll be going long. If I see us at 55.88 into tomorrow morning and we're holding, great. We'll be trying to go long there too on attempt of a buying the dip. Anything here is just pure risk. You have 50-50 odds of whatever direction it might take on because technically the week hasn't begun yet. With that said, that's all I'm looking at on ES. I'm going to set an alert over at 56.25 just in case that pierces. It might. It might pierce right now. But again, I'm not inclined to do anything until Monday comes along. 55.88, I'm going to place my alert to the downside if we get there. And these are kind of the two zones we're in between. So again, if we were to buy here, for example, you have to risk 16, 17, really 20 points to the downside, use 5,600 as a psychological support. But who wants to do that? Those are 50-50 odds right now. I don't. We'll see what Monday has in store. Let's go on over to NQ. Same thing. Let me clear this up. All right. Beautiful. Okay. Beautiful breakout. Um, we had our highs at 20,370, our lows over at 19,720. Clearly broke out of there. Now it's a matter of, do we retest these highs and continue higher, or if we do break below them, same kind of scenario and setup on ES. If we break below 20,370, we're going to end up heading down to possibly as low as 19,900. That's honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, that's a bit of a stretch, but I can't be ignorant to that because after all, if in one week we are able to soar as much as 400, 500 points, why can't we do that to the downside again? So it's all about how are we going to be holding the supports that we broke out of. So my main target is if we get a heavy set pullback again, I doubt it, but if we do 20,370, I'm definitely a buyer there. 20,639 are the highs, and it looks like we're not too far from that. If that ends up breaking out, I'm gonna have to resort to my round number theories of in 50-point increments, knowing that NQ likes to move in 250-point increments on breakouts. My assumption is if and when we break above 20,639, add 250 to that, we're gonna end up roughly around 20,800, 20,850. But before we get there, a break of 20,640, I'm going to be paying attention to 650, then I'm going to be looking at 700, 750, 800, and 50-point increments to the upside if and when we get there. Again, downside, I'm limited on it only because clearly each and every single dip has been bought up. So for us to fall back 300 points right now, it's fair, but I don't see us, going beyond that limit unless some absolute horrible news comes out this week. Breaking this down now on the 4 hour, same thing. You could see we had a beautiful breakout, a beautiful retest. Even though it was low volume, we still managed to retest a breakout of 20,370 and took off. So it's a matter of really, if we break these highs, are we going to be executing that long on momentum? Again, for me, I'd really like to wait around until Monday. Sundays aren't my best execution days personally, but if things end up moving maybe on a break of 20,639, maybe we attempt something. Even that terminology as I'm kind of breaking this down, I'm biased against. I don't want to do that. I want to kind of start the week off nice and easy, no rush, because if we are going higher, great. We'll have 5 days of opportunities of buying dips or possibly attempting the breakouts on momentum. Great. Other than that, I can't pull anything from here aside from telling you guys stay bullish. This is going to go higher. This is definitely has a lot more room to go higher. I know some guys are calling out it's overinflated, we're a bit too high up, but that's not how these bull cycles work. That's not how these bull runs work. And again, with the CPI being the main catalyst for this week, I don't expect it to have too much of a reaction. Ideally, if it whiplashes us down towards the supports of our previous all-time highs, on ES it was 55.88. For NQ it's 20,370. Wonderful. I'm probably going to be buying that in blind fury. But again, might not happen. We might just test some psychological support resistance. A nice test of 20,500 or 20,550 would be a nice little pullback for us to test to possibly go higher. But again, I can't tell too much here from the 4 hour. Let me see on the 1 hour. On the 1 hour, I can only assume that if we cannot get above the highs of 2639, we may pull back to the 20-day, which is roughly around 20,520. Perfect. Gives us a perfect entry, possibly to bite on an intraday long on NQ back up towards the highs. But again, no rush. We'll see kind of what unfolds if we do break above the highs. Again, into Sunday, I don't like that execution method. I much rather wait for Monday. But other than that, I mean, guys, this is going higher. The only red flag is if we break below our last week's highs of 20,370 and 55.88. If that breaks, sure, short term, we might see a little bit of a pullback, but that's not really expected here. With that said, that's all she wrote in terms of direction, in terms of kind of what we're looking for. Buy the dip. If you want to choose to go on a breakout of the highs, you can. Just in that case, those stops have to be a little bit wider rather than the setups on buying the dips. What else are we looking at? I mean, the VIX came up to 1235. It's still pretty tame in the area that it's at. The dollar kind of stopped really. Where are we at? We're at 104. Okay, that makes all the sense in the world. We're below 105. So if the dollar continues to sink lower, weakening down towards 104, I mean, it's a higher chance I think that we go higher. Along with the 10-year bond auctions we have this week on Wednesday and the 30-year bond auction on Thursday, we're gonna have a good week. We're gonna have a solid week, and we'll go from there. With that said, that is all she wrote, and we'll see you on the next one.